Catholic nurse practitioner, and this is the show where we explore faith, food, and function because true wellness nourishes the body, the mind, and the spirit. And if you're live right now, drop a hello in the chat and tell me where you're watching from. Today, we are going to talk about hair loss. And this is a topic that I want to say that gets dismissed a lot. And we'll go into the details later. Are, women get handed off generic answers. But so for so many women, especially in perimenopause and under chronic stress or navigating thyroid issues, hair loss is not a vanity concern. It's a symptom, it's a signal, and it deserves a serious conversation. So let's have one. Today we have Joanna Dallman. She's also known as the Alopecia Angel. She is a health and high performance hair growth coach who works within a functional medicine framework. She's a professional speaker, a podcast host of the Alopecia Angel podcast, Awaken Hair Growth, and she has worked with thousands of clients. Get this, over 67 countries. We're talking before we went live, and she's been in a lot of places. So, what you want to know about Joanna is that her work started with her own story. She was diagnosed with rapidly progressing alopecia areata. She didn't accept that standard answer. So, she approached her condition in a way a problem solver would, asking deeper questions, looking for root causes, and ultimately reversing her hair loss naturally. And if you can see her hair right now, it's amazing. So, her experience became her mission. She now helps women, men, and children navigate autoimmune hair loss, including alopecia areata, totalis, and universalis. And for women specifically, she addresses androgenic alopecia, and postpartum hair loss, telogen effluvium or effluvium, hormonal and thyroid related loss, and hair loss connected to menopause, perimenopause, long COVID, stress, and diffuse thinning. So I'm really, really excited that she's here because there's only a few practitioners that I know of that really address this, and especially in the functional medicine lens. So Joanna, welcome to the show. Is there anything you'd like to add before we dive in?
I'm ready to go. Let's do it.
You're ready to go? All right. So let's just switch here. All right. So before we get into clinical conversation, tell us a little bit about you in your own words and what brought you to this work. So take as much time as you need.
Thank you. I appreciate you. And thank you so much for having me. Well, just as you mentioned, this whole journey started with my own situation. I was in my 30s. I'm now 45, but I was in my early 30s and the healthiest I had ever been, fit. I had a personal trainer. I lived in Miami at the time. I was tan and just really, really, really fit, working out every day. I was working in tech, just very happy on top of my life. And all of a sudden, when I go to the hairdresser to get my routine highlights, all of a sudden they see a bald spot. And he diagnoses me right there saying, Johanna, you have alopecia. I had never had heard of this word. This was over 10 years ago. And when I started researching this on my phone, I just started crying immediately because it wasn't just the results of what it gave me, but it was also the no cure stance. It was also the, either accept it, you may go bald or you're going to be on medications for life. And these were two things that were very, very contrary to how I lived as someone who's never truly needed medications at all, who's always been relatively healthy and who's never had any severe sickness at all in her life, except for, a flu here and there or a cold here and there. And that's about it. But out of everyone in my family, I was absolutely the healthiest inside and out. But lo and behold, that wasn't necessarily true because I was also, diagnosed, and no one else has an autoimmune disease in my family. This wasn't necessarily, something that I saw within my family heritage for any reason. And so I was the only one, and I didn't understand why now, why at this time that I thought I was the healthiest. And, there was a lot of uncertainty. There was a big question mark surrounding the situation, how it was going to move forward. And for potentially the first 6 months, I was a little bit frozen and in shock and still trying to see, what is it going to do? How is it going to progress? And I will say, looking back, waiting is never a strategy. It's actually detrimental, because if you do nothing, nothing changes, nothing improves, and it only gets worse. And that's exactly what happened. It only got worse, and it progressed. And it was one spot, and then a second, and then a third, and it all started in the back. And then, of course, on top of it, I also had telogen effluvium, which is all over shedding. And so I had two types of hair loss at the time. Alopecia is the medical term for hair loss. So, this is a big umbrella which encompasses different types. And I made it my mission to heal myself, because as anyone's watching, I love my hair. I love having big curly hair. Everyone knows me from this. Just today, a lady at the gym was telling me, "Was that you yesterday? I thought it was you because of your hair." And so for me, it's always been very iconic. People know me because of the hair. And I didn't want to lose that, because that is me. And my identity, like much of people around the world, it is tied into how you look, right? Whether that is black, beautiful hair, long and straight, or kinky curls, or any other thing, type of hair. And so it does identify you. And so, again, I was very distraught about the situation. I had seen multiple doctors of all different sorts. And again, they were very dismissive and very, very unhelpful. The doctors in Europe, I was transferring over to move to Europe, so I saw doctors there too. The doctors in Europe said, "Stop wearing a ponytail." And I knew it wasn't because of a ponytail, because I never wear ponytails to begin with. I knew that alopecia didn't come from that. I knew there was something bigger. And I knew that if I always had hair, that I would get it back. And it wasn't going to be through the medications, because when I started looking into the medications, their side effects, their guarantees, and the possibilities of the full healing, quote unquote, I realized that these medications were mere gimmicks, mere band-aids to a situation that needed further depth and consideration, further comprehensive research. And the medications were not doing that. And the doctors that I was seeing in Europe weren't helpful. The ones in California or in Denver also weren't helpful. And so I made it my quest to find answers, to understand myself, and to really uncover this. And if you would have told me you need to go to Mount Everest and eat frog legs, I would have done it. I would have done anything. And I did it all in order to get my hair back. And then once this journey of 3.5, 4 years stopped, and I started seeing the hair growth and all the ancillary symptoms just kind of like washed off of me overnight, seemingly, I knew more people needed to know. I knew that throughout my years of researching, of being on forums, of talking to people, of searching, there are millions of people worldwide suffering with this condition. And I'll tell you, as someone who's been working only strictly in hair loss, only strictly in autoimmune scarring and other types of hair loss, reversing and healing it naturally, I've seen an uptick in women and children who are diagnosed. And the research proves this. Women and children are 4 times more likely to be diagnosed with an autoimmune disease than men. And on top of it, this uptick in children especially has been so rampant. And so 10 years ago, it was maybe a handful of kids a year. And now it's almost every day I'm hearing of children being diagnosed with alopecia. And so there's a startling situation there. And, to no surprise, if you start looking at the research, there's also an uptick in chronic disease and heart disease and cancers, obesity. Yeah. Like, our population isn't getting healthier. It's getting sicker. And unfortunately, in this bigger pool of just being sick and tired of being sick and disabled in many ways, because it can handicap you emotionally, mentally, physically. People say it's just hair, but it's not. It affects you on every level, whether it's mental, emotional, physical. It, trickles down into your work, how you show up while you're dating, which, by the way, I was dating at the time. I had met my husband, who, we were dating at the time, but, I didn't even want to tell him. And so it was just like I was keeping a secret, but then we were getting serious. And it's like, at what point do you tell somebody, hey, you were recently diagnosed, and you're
Mm-hmm.
like, oh no, I got to tell you something, you know? So looking like now I can laugh at it. But at the time,
Mm-hmm.
I was, biting my fingers. I was on edge. I was so scared of all the things, of all the possibilities, of coming clean with a diagnosis, all the things. So
Yeah.
it was all challenging. Every aspect of it was challenging, and I couldn't hide it, and I couldn't keep it to myself. And it's one of those things where I'm so grateful that I just grabbed the bull by the horns, and I went in and I went deep. And I think that's where we need to go in order to come out the best version of ourselves.
I'm so glad that you did. I'm sure everyone that you've helped is really grateful. I mean, are really grateful. So let's get to know you a little bit more. What book are you currently reading right now?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Oh, what book are you currently reading right now?
I have a full stack of books on my desk and also on my nightstand. I love reading, and sometimes I get bored, so I switch out. I know I'm reading a couple from Tony Robbins. I love Tony. I think he's fantastic, and his story is so striking and compelling. I have a couple other books. I also have some about meditation, and one is called The Awakening. There's another book that I just got, and it's about the miracle medicine, and it's by an unknown author. I found it at a book sale that my community was having, and so
Mm-hmm.
you go in and you buy like a big bag full of books for like $5, and so I went in and I bought like all these books, and so I have a stack of them. Just I need to go through them and see. And then of course I just told you that I came back last week from a conference in Boise, Idaho.
Mm-hmm.
It's the KIT conference, and there was a bunch of authors there too. And so one is called Energize from Simon Ong. He is a
Mm-hmm.
British author, British Chinese author, and I met him in person. James Clear was there, author of Atomic Habits, and there was a bunch of other authors, and so they were all giving away their books. And so I have their books also on the
Oh,
nightstand.
wow.
So I have so many that I'm reading, and that I'm going through so many. And I actually just saw a brand new business book for sale, from an author that I follow, and I was just like, oh, I need to get that book next. So it's on a consistent rotation.
Oh, wow. Amazing. So oh, bless you. What is the first thing that you do in the morning?
First thing I do in the morning, I'm normally woken up by my toddler. I have a 5-year-old, and so first thing, depending if it's 1, 2, 3, or 4 in the morning, it's little feet on my back. So
Whatever the toddler dictates.
yes, so I really realize it's him, and so then I'm grateful. I'm grateful that he likes to snuggle with mommy still. I'm grateful
Oh, I
that
love that.
he wants to be close to me, and that he is close to
Mhm.
me, and so uh, we have a very close relationship. And so I normally wake up groggy but grateful at the same time.
Mm.
And then I always know a few hours left of sleep left before he's going to tell me
Mhm.
that he's hungry. So he's like my
Yeah.
alarm clock.
It's like one of those times, like, don't do anything yet. Just snuggle with me right now. Right?
Yeah, I know. Let's play a game. Let's play sleep.
Yeah, exactly. How long can we stay asleep? All right. So let's get into it. So one of the things that I hear women in my practice, and especially in this community, especially with hair loss, is that this symptom is not taken seriously. So you mentioned it at a visit that you get handed a shampoo and recommendation or told that it's a stress. And here's what I know from working in hormone health for over 2 decades. So hair loss in women is always telling us something deeper. It can be thyroid dysfunction, nutrient depletion, autoimmune activity, hormonal shift, or chronic stress load. Um, so let's get to the root cause of what you're doing. So you had already told me, we've gone from the beginning and you had conventional medicine path in front of you. Um, So you went that different direction. And then when you finally reversed your alopecia, so what did it feel like and what did it tell you about what was possible for other people?
Do you happen to hear that static? Because I'm not getting the feedback all clear from you. So I'm going to
Oh,
ask
okay.
to have you repeat, please, the question because I'm only hearing static sometimes.
Okay. Let me
Sorry.
see if I'm glad you said, because I thought you were typing and I would just like
No,
hear.
I'm not typing at all. No, I hear just this
Hmm.
feedback. I'm wondering if we can fix that.
Yeah, let's go. Switch to. Yeah, I do hear it. Um, let's do.
I think it's actually better because I hear you now clearer.
Oh, you do? Okay. Huh. Maybe it's
It
okay.
just went away.
Let's do this. Is that okay now?
So much better. So much better. Thank you.
I think I know what happened. I had like some cords wrapped around. So do you want me to repeat?
The question? Yes, please.
Yes. Oh, I think I hear like the little kind of.
You still hear that? It's like robotic static.
Yeah, like little taps when I talk.
Yeah.
Okay, let's change something here. Um, I don't know. How about now? I still hear some kind of static.
I'd say let's push through. I think it's still doable. I just may have to ask you to repeat.
Okay. Well, I'm just worried that like the list.
Now you're muted because I can't hear you. I will say yesterday I was on a podcast too, and the technical issues were there as well.
How's that?
I can hear you better. Yes, very clear.
Okay. All right, let's go. I can still hear that kind of static a little bit, but if you can hear
Maybe
me,
I can hear you. You know what I'm going to do? Maybe I should try to put some headphones on. Maybe that'll help.
okay.
Maybe that'll help. Let's see. Is that better?
Can you say something?
Yeah, I hear you loud and clear. I actually
Okay.
hear you very well.
Okay, so now I'm talking, I don't hear the static anymore.
I hear static on your end, but that's okay. I say let's push through.
Let's push through. Okay. All right. So now let's see. We've talked about the beginning, and you've had a conventional medicine path in front of you. So I don't know if you answered it initially. So what made you go a different direction when your hair started falling out? Of course, it's the obviously you've been handed like a pill or shampoo or something, and you had mentioned initially that you have seen like several different specialists.
I did. I
So then,
did. I saw over 5, 10 doctors, and I just kept
wow.
seeking, but none of them were giving me the answers or the results that I wanted to. And as someone coming from tech, I had worked at Apple. I was in corporate there for many years, and that corporate culture has a way of doing things differently, right? This is the company that created the iPhone. This is the company that created so many electronics that we use today. And so this is where I used that think different motto that they have, their slogan, to reroute myself to see what was best. The thing is, I had mentioned I had just met my husband. We were still dating, but we wanted to get serious. And so I knew I wanted her to be a mom. And I also didn't want any of the medications to impair or hinder my fertility. And so to me, this was a big deal because I was already in my 30s. And, you know, it's not like I'm 18. I was in my 30s. And so I wanted to be a mom. And the process of being a mom isn't always streamlined, right? Just like anything, you know, going to college or buying a house or anything else, it's never necessarily streamlined. It's not always on the first try or anything else. And so I wanted to be cautious with that. I wanted to protect my fertility. And so lo and behold, I went the natural route, really only focused on protecting my other healthy organs that I thought were healthy, on my other aspects of health that where I thought were doing fantastic physically, mentally, and then of course the fertility. So what had happened was that once I healed myself naturally, it upgraded me in every way. And I actually got pregnant at 40 on the first try. And so,
Wow.
So this is where, you know, proof is in the pudding. Like when you actually do something about your situation naturally, supporting the body, this is where your body actually gives back, you know, in an amazing way.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that you thought about your fertility when you were looking for the other treatments because, you know, I don't think it's being brought up like when, you know, women come for a concern and they don't normally think about, well, is this going to hinder my fertility? Because they may or may not want kids at that time.
Sure.
But then it's also not explained to them all the side effects, how this is going to affect you. And even your birth control, it's like it's being handed out, you know, almost like candy. It's a quick fix right now. Oh, you're in pain, you have periods, here's birth control. But we don't, it's not always explained about the long-term side effects and how it's going to affect all your other organs in the long run. So I'm really grateful. I'm really glad that you had thought about that.
You have
So then
to.
when you finally, yeah, and I encourage everyone, you know, to do that, ask questions and be advocate. Always think long-term, right? So when you finally reversed alopecia, what did it feel like? And what did it tell you about what was possible for other people?
It, you know, that day I can literally go back to it whenever I think about it. I can taste it in my mouth. That's how present it
Wow.
is. It, you know, I can't explain into words because I got to tell you, as a 30-something-year-old at the time, it was hard for me to vocalize and to connect the dots that the insomnia, the anxiety, the depression, the lethargy, the brain fog, the what else was I going through? The dry skin, the dry eyes, all these things were all interconnected and interweaved with my situation. And they just kind of like started sprouting like mushrooms. And all of a sudden I felt like I was going from 30 to 80 overnight. And I was just like, what is
Oh,
going
wow.
on? You know, I've always had tons of energy, always super motivated, lots of high energy, hence all the working out and whatnot. And still, it mind boggled me that I couldn't even remember a grocery list, a small grocery list to go, you know, just memorize and go to the store to. And I was forgetting everything. And the stress had hit me so hard that I actually even impacted my memory to a certain degree, like the short-term memory, like it was zapped in a bad way. And I remember coming out of this slowly, right? It's not overnight, but overnight I felt like a huge relief overnight. And then I was just like, okay, well, I guess what I'm doing is working. I just need to keep at it. And so then I kept at it and more of these symptoms went away. But I saw myself, I just woke up like a normal day, woke up in the morning, no kid this
Mm-hmm.
time, right? There was no kid at the moment. And I woke up, went to the bathroom, and I avoided mirrors throughout these 4 years. I avoided mirrors like the plague. But this time I saw myself in the mirror and I recognized the old Johanna. And I knew I was on the right path right then and there. I was like, the old Johanna's here. And I sense her and I feel her. And that's when I feel that I broke through of the symptoms and the alopecia, and the hair started growing, because it did. It just started growing from then on. And it was just a huge 360 turn of events. And not to say that the next day, I went and ran a marathon, because I didn't. But at the same time, little by little, all the things that I used to love doing normally came back. All the energy, the high energy that I had came back. So the old me started to come back more and more and more and more. And much like, a savings account, it's like once you start doubling down on what you're doing, you get more results, you get better at it, and you start to really see and pick apart what it is that you need personally in order to thrive, in order to be your best. And so it took a minute, because we all have blind spots, we all have triggers, we all have things that are holding us back that we don't know. We knowingly know, and we knowingly don't know. And so this is part of the problem. This is why healing an autoimmune disease, reversing it, putting it into remission, it has so many parts and layers to it. It has several factors, and it's never just one. But what I will say is that when you start looking at all the things that you've been doing, or you think that were good for you, a lot of times they're actually bad for you. And so I would have you evaluate, question, and really hone in to see if you can correlate a certain situation with another. So, it could be anything from like, how do you feel after eating a certain food, or how do you feel after getting your Botox? Because I'll tell you, Botox is not your friend. How do you feel, or how have you felt since having your breast implants? These are the types of things that can cause autoimmune diseases, that can cause issues in your health. And so people don't necessarily correlate Botox with that, but it's there. The research shows it. The same thing with breast implant illness, or the same thing with so many other factors that go into, to truly leading a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah, because a lot of these things are normalized, right? Oh, it's normal to get Botox. You see a little bit of wrinkles, just, get like a few units here and there. It's not going to harm you, right?
It's so true. It's so true.
Yeah. So we know that hair loss in women is often hormonal, and sometimes autoimmune. So can you walk us through the most common hormonal drivers that you see, especially in the perimenopause window?
So when it comes to hormones and hair loss, I always like to look at all the other factors too. As you know, thyroid plays a big part too. But then when it comes to hormones, I have clients who are postpartum. I have clients who are, I have one in particular who I'm thinking about. She was 15, 13 years postpartum, and still this hair loss, just the shedding never stopped. And so even though, you may be giggling here, 13 years postpartum, but at the same time, it just never stopped. The shedding started when she gave birth, and it just never stopped. And so to me, at some point, it's no longer the hormone. Now it's all these other triggers that also identify and are contributing to the hair loss. So for example, this client who I'm thinking about, her name is Vicky. She's on my YouTube channel. And in 1 week, her hair loss stopped. So that shedding, the incessant shedding that she had, where we showed pictures in the video where she has so much hair every 3-4 days. She says in the video where she could actually like make a sweater out of it. It stopped all in 1 week. And this is what I'm talking about when I say blind spots, because her blind spots were not hormonal. Her blind spots were. So this is where when you start evaluating the person uniquely for who they are, and that path that they've taken, and medical history and everything else, then you can really identify exactly what is holding them back, because they think they're super healthy, super natural. Vicky, for example, she's a yoga instructor. She does retreats. She has very little to low stress, so it's not that. But she just said, it was postpartum that just never stopped for 13 years. Or for example, a lot of people think it's long COVID. You had COVID once, it started then, and then it just never stopped. Or one thing triggered it potentially, or one thing you think triggered it, and then it's never stopped. But that's all over hair loss. And that can be hormonal, it can be stress induced, it can be it can have many factors to it as well. When it comes to perimenopause in particular, so Vicky, for example, she's a classic case. She's my age. She's 45, 46 years old, and she had the stretch of 13 years of hair loss, and it stopped in just 1 week. So it had nothing to do with hormones, even though women, we always gravitate towards that. And we kind of blame our hormones for everything, unfortunately. And so they're kind of, we really do. We blame our menstrual cycle, or our cycle in general, or just being female. Like this is just the way it is because we're female. And really it's not. And a lot of times, not to say that your hormones could be off and could be triggering this, sure, but there could be other factors. It could be the thyroid, it could be your adrenals, it could be just so many other factors, and it's never just one thing. If there's anything that you can take away from this discussion, is that healing hair loss is never one thing. And this is why when you go to internet searches, you're seeking, obsessively searching and scrolling, and you're trying to do all the things from the onion juice to the, trying to get your blood work done to see where your vitamin D is, or your B vitamins levels are at, or your ferritin or your iron. And these are very, very low hanging fruit. This is just superficial. I mean, if you're really looking at it, most Americans are not nutrient deficient, just the opposite. I mean, just the opposite. So it's never going to be this for the majority of people. Does this make sense? So
so you say like we're focusing on the wrong thing.
Yes, you're focusing on the wrong things because, I don't know, for either social media makes you feel better about it, or it gives you some sort of answers. But the true answer here is that you need to see a specialist, someone who only focuses on hair loss and alopecia, and get a personal evaluation. You need to get that intake form. You need to look at triggers and blind spots. You need to look at the results. I will say, if there's any mistake that I did in my many years going through this myself, was that I was just seeing doctors randomly. Any doctor that would take me, I would go see them. And that's not the way, because I never asked the bigger questions. I never asked, hey, what are your results with your treatment, with your plan? How long have you been focusing on alopecia? Where are your results, before and after pictures, your client testimonials, your patient testimonials, your video testimonials where they're seeing full hair growth. And so this is what I would have asked for, but I was in this fog and blur of just any doctor. And
you need someone to help you.
Any doctor doesn't work. And not just that, but a lot of times it's only medications. That's all you're given. That's the only option.
Yeah, I mean, it's like with everything, you have your general list. You don't go to a women's health professional for cardiac issues, right? At some point, we have, yes, they might know the basics, but for really managing that, especially when you're getting into really big issues, then you need that referral. You need to see a specialist. And also you said that we can't blame the uterus for everything. We can't blame the hormones for everything.
There's more to it. Your life, let's say in my case, 40 plus years, it's like a resume, and you have to look at the whole resume to see the whole picture. You can't just look at, oh, my hair loss started last week. What are we going to do about it? It's much more. The conversation is bigger, and it takes longer, because it's not just about you right here, right now at 40 or 30 or 50 or 60. It's you right here, right now, with that resume of health. Everything that's happened to you, everything that you've been through.
Were you able to kind of narrow down what finally triggered the autoimmune alopecia?
All the things. When you start doing all the things, you start uncovering so much. Even things that you had no idea are absolutely related. Like I mentioned, the Botox or breast implants or anything else. I never had any of that. But, you just go down into a true rabbit's hole, and you start uncovering all the factors, and you're astonished. And then what happened after I healed, I knew that not everyone's triggers or blind spots were going to be the same as mine. So I started doing massive, much more research, and I started finding other culprits. And so it could go from anything from environment to foods to allergies to a history of, let's say, another second, third autoimmune disease. It could also be, thyroid issues. It could also be so many other issues in general where it's almost like antagonizing the body to be disrupted, or it's already disrupted, but it's not well managed. A lot of times people think with the thyroid, for example, that all you have to do is take a medication or something, but that's just a Band-Aid as well. That's not managing it. That's not helping it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then we get into this blame game. Like I said, sometimes you blame the thyroid, like here's the medicine, and then someone in perimenopause. I was thinking of one of the women that came to me, and she was so convinced that she needed HRT, and she was like, I need estrogen. And then so after we've gone through everything, she has a lot more estrogen than her, so she's the opposite way, but then she's having all these symptoms. So it's not always like what you see in social media, that if you're crying or if this is happening, you're low on this and this is what you need.
Yeah,
let's talk about
definitely numerous factors. And if you're not working with the correct practitioner, this can delay the situation. It will delay your results and it will create more frustration. I say this having seen so many clients over the years where they're dealing with this situation for 6, 9, 10 years. And it's because they're working with practitioners who don't have the results, don't have the expertise, can't connect the dots, don't offer correct testing, or have subpar testing, or maybe potentially, where they live in certain countries, they just can't access it. And so this is also a problem. It's also another factor to it. So there are many layers to it. I work with lots of internationals, and I've created a program, my own program, to help internationals primarily because I was that expat. I have lived in 5 different countries, 5 different states, 4 different continents, and to find decent health care abroad for my alopecia, but even while I was pregnant at 40 in Europe, it was just so painful to find answers and to find medical staff to actually go the extra mile for you. I can tell you a story that I was 40, my first pregnancy, and I never got to see a doctor. Never. Not because I didn't want to, but because I wasn't allowed to. In the Netherlands, the threshold is twins. If you're having twins, you get to see the doctor. If not, you're subjected to a midwife.
Are you serious? So there's no like prenatal care in...
There is, but it's, if I can go on and on about this. Like, I had to change my midwives 3 times because the first one was a 16-year-old who barely had her period 4 years ago. Like, you're not going to deliver my baby at 40. Like, that's not happening. Sorry. You don't have enough experience.
Wow. It makes you really appreciate what we have here in this country, right?
Well, it does. I feel as an American, as someone who's lived abroad, I feel like we have choices and we have options. And there's nothing better than that. Sure, you may have to pay out of pocket, but at least there's a choice and there's an option. A lot of times, other people, internationals, don't realize that exists. And so, for example, if you're under this universal healthcare system, like Canadians, like the British, like the Dutch, like Germans, like the Australians, like so many others, you're subjected to this one way of doing things. And if you don't fit into those parameters, you're not helped. There's no standard of care. The standard of care is you have to fit into these parameters. And you don't get to see a doctor when you like. You can't just ask for an expert. You can't and see your gynecologist. And even when it comes to testing there is far and few between. As an American, I wanted my pap smear every year and wanted to do all the things every year. They're like, no, we do a pap smear once every 10 years. I was like, oh no.
Wow.
I know, I'm in the wrong country. You know what I mean?
Oh my goodness.
The standard of care is very subpar abroad. And I don't think they don't realize that. And I don't think
Mm-hmm.
Americans realize that either. Americans think that the grass is greener abroad, and people abroad think like their healthcare system is the best. And I'm here to tell you
Mm-hmm.
that both people are wrong. Like both sides of the story are completely wrong. It's actually
Wow.
better in the U.S. not because of necessarily the practitioners, because there are medical mistakes here. There are mistakes around the world.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just part of being in the system and being in healthcare. It's run by humans, right? There
Uh-huh.
will be
Yep.
mistakes. However, we get to choose. And for those who can pay and can afford certain insurance or out of pocket, you have more
Mm-hmm.
choices than not. And so this is, to me, it's crucial. It's a game changer when you can choose to have better service, when you
Yes.
can choose better practitioners, when you can choose more testing and not be subjected
Mm-hmm.
to whatever your general practitioner tells you. You know, because
Mm-hmm.
if it was up to my general practitioner back in the Netherlands, she didn't allow for any testing. I mean, during my pregnancy, I only had 2 ultrasounds and 1 urine test throughout the whole 9 months. That's it.
Wow.
That's it. And I know every American female is appalled at this point.
Yes. Wow. I have no words. I'm glad that you have your toddler.
He was
Go
very
through
healthy
your.
and safe, but I will tell you that going through what I went through with alopecia, with lack of
Mm-hmm.
support, lack of practitioners, lack of testing, lack of everything, not only did I muscle
Mm-hmm.
my way to heal myself with alopecia, but that actually prepared me to deliver and have my baby with a midwife, her assistant, and my
Mm-hmm.
husband in this Dutch home, at 40 during COVID.
Wow.
And so, it was preparing me, kind of like in the Bible where they say where little challenges, they prepare you for like for the next
Yes.
phase of your life. That, as I'm saying this out loud, I see how it did prepare me, because I was advocating for myself. And even though I wasn't able to travel, and even though I wasn't able to get testing, I know
Mm-hmm.
and see the benefit of having functional medicine testing, having worldwide access. And this is why I offer worldwide access to functional medicine testing with my practitioners and
Mm-hmm.
my team to anywhere. I've had clients in Russia, I've had clients in Croatia, I've had clients in
Mm-hmm.
Japan, Czech Republic, Canada, you name it. And so it doesn't matter where possible, where and when possible. I try to make it happen, because I
Yes.
know how difficult and how agonizing it is to find somebody who
Mm-hmm.
has the expertise, who has the experience, who has just the knowledge of where to guide you, of
Yeah.
where to take you, those next steps, the protocols, like what to look for. That's huge.
Yeah.
You save so much time and money. And I wish somebody would have done that for me, but it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now my clients are seeing hair growth in less than 8 weeks. They're seeing the shedding stop in less
Wow.
than 8 weeks. And the journey can be
Mm-hmm.
shorter and shortened for them, so that they can go on to
Yes.
live their best lives with a full head of hair at any age, with any
Yeah.
race, at any point in their life. There's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
myths surrounding hair loss, like you're too old or it's too late. And I will say, you're never too old and it's never too late. It doesn't matter if
Or
you've
it's
had
genetic.
alopecia
It's another one.
or genetic, right? That's another one. I offer a DNA test, so I can put the kibosh on that too, because the DNA test shows you exactly that. No, it's not genetic, that you actually have more opportunities and possibilities of honing in
Mm-hmm.
and helping and supporting your DNA so that you can live a healthy life. So it's not all
Yeah.
genetics. That's not true too. That's also a myth. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm glad that you're sharing all this. So now let's talk. I'm really curious now. I want to talk about your programs. So what does your intake process look like?
So I have a 12-page intake form. Currently, it's 12 pages. It grows a little bit, yeah, every time. And from there, we have a personal call. I have recommendations from my clients, and we create a strategy. We create a plan. For each client, it's going to look a little different. Again, because we're taking into consideration their current supplements, their current medications, their current second, third, fourth autoimmune disease, or any ancillary situations. I've had clients who are in remission from cancer, or who had cancer maybe 5, 10 years ago. Some that are breastfeeding, some that are trying to conceive, some at different stages of life. And so you need to accommodate and adapt to each stage of life for them. And so this is that intake form. I'm looking at all the puzzle pieces that they're giving me, and then I'm the investigator who puts this puzzle together. And then from there, we can start with testing, or we start within the program, looking at diet and lifestyle, and then we start to see progress, and you mitigate as you go on. But 90% see hair growth in less than 8 weeks, and the shedding stops on average anywhere from 1 to 6 weeks. And if you're completely bald with, like, say, alopecia totalis or universalis, you can grow the hair on average in 6 months and have a full buzz cut or pixie cut. So it's never too late. It's never been too long or too many years have passed. As long as you have a beating heart and you want to change, it's there for you.
Wow, that's amazing. So what do you think of like those? I know there's like a lot of products and like tech, the red light therapy for.
So I like biohacking. I think biohacking has a time and place for it, but I will say you need to have a good foundation. To bring on biohacking on top of a bad foundation, it's not going to work. It'll be just like anything else, just a gimmick, just a band-aid. You have to have a strong, solid foundation, and then layer it with something else, and then layer it with potentially biohacking. And that's, again, individualized. It has to be individualized. And the way you biohack for a female is always going to look different than a male. And the way you do things in general will look different for any female. Even, in a cohort of females, it's going to look different between each one, because we're all so different. We all lead different lives. And so this is important to take into consideration. I had a client who just joined in my program today, and she's like, well, I run a very busy life. How is this going to impact my busyness? So you have to, meet the person where they're at, and it adapts to you. Everything is adaptable to you. But at the same time, there's no reward if there's no effort. Just like going to the gym. The gym is open 24 hours. And at the same time, this is where we're all the same. We all have the same 24 hours. So it's up to us to put in some effort, a lot of effort, or no effort into the gym. And that's the reward and the consequences that we also have.
And I'm glad you brought that up. Like, that lady that you had, how is this going to impact my busyness? So it's really like, okay, what's your priority? And I tell like people I work with too, it's like, what's your priority, right? What are you willing to change, and what do you want right now? You can't like keep like stressing yourself, keep not sleeping, and then expect your cortisol to go down. And then at the same time, you can't out supplement a bad diet, right? You can't say, okay, give me something that can, just pretty much negate all these bad stuff that I'm doing to myself. And I'm glad that you have this 12-page intake that you're looking at everything, because people need to be aware that I'm doing this to myself. Or if you're not aware that you're doing this to yourself, like maybe the environment, like, like gut health is a big thing. Like a lot of hormones are produced in the gut, and a lot of things that happen in the gut or don't happen in the gut impacts us immensely.
It's true. It's true. But a lot of times too, we are self-prescribing ourselves. We're self-prescribing a bunch of supplements that we don't need, or we're eating a lot of foods that we think are healthy, but maybe they're not healthy for us. And so just because they're marketed, that's the key word here, marketed as a health food, it doesn't mean it's good for us. And so this is the situation, is that nothing out there that's on a shelf is personalized to you. This is why going to the Nutrafols and the Viviscals and the specialty shampoos and the minoxidils and the Rogaines and all these things are not personalized to you. This is why none of these things work, and just end up having you feeling more and more disappointed and frustrated, and of course going around in circles chasing your tail because you're not getting to answers or results.
Yeah, that's why I'm such a fan. And you mentioned personalized. I'm a fan of like personalized, like functional testing. Like you said, just because, okay, I don't have any energy, I must need B12. But then how is your body metabolizing that? Or do you really need that? Do you have like enough? And then there's just something that's blocking it. So that's when the functional testing comes in. And a lot of people, they say, is that covered by insurance? Because if not, I don't want to pay for it. But what's it costing you, right? Are you willing to wait 5, 10 years to see like what you could fix right now? That could be just something very simple. You could be missing that certain nutrient that, hey, that's not being told to you by mainstream media, and like it doesn't show the testing. So testing is really where it is. Otherwise, you're just throwing spaghetti on the wall and see what sticks, and then that's costing you time and money in the long run.
And it's creating more stress. The obsession that I went through, I made it my job to figure out my hair loss situation. I made it my job to not just go back to my old self, but what ends up happening was now I'm 10 times better than my old self, on all fronts, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, physically, everything. And so a lot of times too, we think just because maybe somebody has the physicality of health, it doesn't necessarily equate to true health on the inside. And so we have to look at everything with a double-edged sword, because there's multiple facets to it, and it's never just a one size fits all. So when it comes to hair loss or hormones or anything else, there are just so many angles to it that you have to be asking more questions and really advocate for yourself. If this is one thing that I ever learned through my whole shenanigans of the hair loss, but then also with going through a pregnancy abroad, it's to truly advocate for yourself. And it doesn't have to be in a very loud and boisterous way. It could actually be in a very calm and quiet way. So for example, when I was going through my pregnancy, here's another horror story of the Netherlands, is that when you're you're in labor, they just allow you to be in labor. So if you're like a cow there in labor. I have friends who were in labor for 3 days and 6 days, 3 days and 6 days respectively. And having seen them, because we were all pregnant at the same time, having seen them go through that, I was just like, oh no, I need to do something. I can't travel. It's COVID. Everything's locked down. What am I going to do? And so I started researching, as I do, and I researched, and I found that if you eat dates after, I think, week 30 or something, you, and this is proven science-backed, that it moisturizes and makes your uterus and the birth canal and everything just very supple for the baby to essentially slip out. And so my baby was born naturally, because guess what? Midwives are not going to give you a C-section. They're also not going to give you an epidural. So I had birth like you birth a baby from the 1500s with no epidural, with no nothing.
Wow.
I know. I had a 10-pound baby. And
wow, you're a rock star in many ways.
At home, mind you, at home with a midwife.
In a different country.
In a different country. And with broken English, just trying to figure things out. And what had happened was I delivered him in 13 hours. In 13 hours from like start to finish. It was like 13 and a half hours. And the midwife was so astonished. She couldn't believe it. By the time she saw me, it was like 6 a.m., 4 a.m. because I was just like, I'm in pain. You need to come now. She came to the house and she's like, oh, you're ready to go. You're dilated already. I'm like, let's go. Let's do this. Come on. I'm waiting.
And it's the dates, right? It's the dates.
It's the dates. 100%. It was the dates for her. So for any of you out there, pass on the information that eating dates is a good thing during your pregnancy and for labor. It'll speed up the labor. There's science behind that. You can find it in PubMed. I promise.
It's probably great too, because then you're not craving the sugar, because it's, it won't spike your blood glucose.
No. And granted, I didn't have any tests, so I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you what that looked like.
I just see like a lot of recipes. Like if you're trying to, keep your blood glucose down, instead of using sugar or the other alternatives, a good alternative are monk fruit and dates, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I see your toddler. Hi.
Oh, I know. He's
so for the woman who's been losing hair for months or years and is starting to lose hope. So what's the first thing you tell her?
That there's always a way out, that there's always a possibility to heal, that there's always an option. And if she follows the strategy, if she follows the plan, she will see results. And it's really about listening to yourself and unlearning to relearn a situation that we thought that we could fix topically with some sort of lotion or potion, but really deserves much more credit and much more depth in terms of looking at our health. And sometimes it's a great time to stop time to really adjust our paths for the rest of our lives. So for example, because this happened to me in my 30s, this was so poignant, so critical, because it transcended the future years after, getting pregnant, having an amazing pregnancy with no issues, thank God, because I had no doctor to see. But at the same time, even now, coming back to the US just 3 years ago from Japan, and seeing how the Japanese do healthcare, I'm happy to be here, but I also have the tools for anti-aging and longevity, naturally, gracefully, without the Botox, without the fillers, and in reality, with optimal health, optimizing every aspect of health, because that's true wealth, in my opinion. If we don't have the health, everything else becomes much harder, much more of a uphill journey. But when we have health,
Yes.
everything else is just menial problem that we can fix and we can give it that solution to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm glad. Well, yeah, thank you for that. So, you had talked earlier about like 6 to 8 weeks, like people are starting for regrowth. Is that about a realistic timeline for someone if they commit to the process?
So when it comes to supporting the body, you would be
Mm-hmm.
amazed at how the body wants to be supported. And so once you start changing diet and lifestyle, and you're going through all these factors, it becomes an amazing transformation in just a couple weeks. I have so many testimonials of not just the hair loss or even hair growth that happens in week 3, week 4, week 5, but also the ancillary symptoms, the joint pain, the knee pain, the brain fog, the insomnia. All these things start to wash away just by making a concerted, conscious effort in our own well-being. And once we see where we've gone wrong, then we're anxious to pick up the pace and to do more, because the more you do, the better it is. And then the more you feel just better. So now in my mid 40s, I feel like I'm in my 30s again, with the energy,
Wow.
with the clarity of my head, with how I feel and function, with, even with after
Mm-hmm.
intense workouts, or even after 4 days of a conference, I still feel good.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also
Yeah, and I
being
tell women
proactive in my
too.
health too, which is part of the situation.
Yeah, well, good. And I tell women too that hey, it's like a domino effect, right? It's like we may not be able to pinpoint like exactly what hormone you need or what we can fix, but like I tell you right now, if one goes wrong, it's like everything falls down. So you really have to pick everything back up, and it's a holistic view. And we earlier we were talking about gardens, and I actually have a hydroponic garden here at home, and because in Alaska, right, we can't grow year round, so um, I have the hydroponic indoors, and I can tell a difference with the taste of the vegetables that I grow indoors. They stay fresh longer, and because I can monitor, they're not shipped, they're not like laden with pesticides or a lot of fertilizers. So yeah, like really going in deep and going. We had talked earlier about the toxins in your home and like the sheets and the soaps and all that stuff. I'm sure that's all in your program. So if someone listening today wanted to start somewhere this week, what would that look like?
If somebody wanted to start this week, what would that look like?
Yes, if someone like wanted to work with you.
Well, we would, depending on the situation, we might have an initial call. We would start with the intake form. We would get going with the strategy. We would have a personalized call to discuss next steps, whether that's testing, whether that's the reviewing of tests, because that's another thing that I like to do. If the person, which more than likely they've done a lot of testing already, potentially functional, maybe not functional, maybe it was just a CBC or maybe some thyroid, then I like to review all these tests, mistakes that I find from practitioners, especially abroad.
Mm-hmm.
I've had clients in Dubai, clients in Canada, where their practitioners have missed the mark and they just almost ignored certain ailments that they had or certain things that came up on their blood work or on their testing, and they weren't addressed. And to me, this is a disservice to the client. And I don't know what happened there, what the transaction looked like, but at the same time, it's a disservice. And so just because it may be normal where you live doesn't mean it's good for you. So it's one of those things where my train of thought and my idea of what health looks like is also very different than what they're seeing in Canada and Estonia or anywhere else. Because again, their doctors are, I mean, in my opinion, depending on the doctor, of course, I don't want to make a gross generalization, but the ones that I've seen and the ones that my clients have seen are going off of research from 30, 40 years ago. And they're working off of very, very archaic ways of doing things. And so you have to question it. If you don't question it, where are you going to be? Had I not questioned the doctors in Europe, the doctors in California and in Denver, where would I be today? You know what I mean? It's like, had I not questioned my whole pregnancy, and I mean, I can tell you more and more horror stories of the Netherlands. I can't. I should write a book about it. But at the same time, had I not questioned them, I would have missed the mark so many ways. And, you know, granted, I didn't have the support I was looking for completely. I would have wanted more. But at the same time, having the knowledge and doing the research myself, I was able to help myself better mentally, emotionally, with more knowledge, much more than what any healthcare system in the Netherlands would have offered.
Wow. Yeah. I'm glad that you did, because now, like, your experience went to training and now you're helping a lot of people.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. We're all moms, right? So, Johanna, this has been a genuinely important conversation, and thank you for bringing the depth and the real clinical thinking and your experience this to so many women, especially women who are not getting answers. So, for everyone watching and listening, if you want to learn more about Johanna, head to alopeciaangel.com. And if you're on YouTube right now, I actually put a QR code on the screen, so just scan it. It'll take you to her website. You can find her on Instagram at alopecia. The lower slash underscore angel. And then she's also on Facebook. So facebook.com/alopecia angel. And she also has a podcast. It's the Alopecia Angel podcast, Awaken to Hair Growth. So wherever you can find her, wherever you're listening to a podcast. If this conversation was helpful, I want you to do two things. So subscribe to the Blue Veil Wellness Show, so you don't miss any future episodes, and share this with a woman in your life who is dealing with unexplained hair loss. And that one share might be exactly what she's looking for. So I would leave you with this. The body is always communicating. Hair loss is not the enemy, it's a message. And when we approach our health with curiosity instead of fear, we give ourselves the best chance of understanding what our bodies are trying to say. Joanna, do you have any other last words for our listeners?
Healing is possible, and it's really in your hands to be able to move the needle and to get the full hair growth. If you're expecting, you know, the doctors to do some, if you're expecting the supplements on the shelf or the laser caps or the PRPs or anything else, you're giving away your power. What really needs to happen is you need to take responsibility and ownership and really ask more questions, go deeper, and you will find the results. I guarantee it.
Amazing. So thank you for being part of this community where we take faith, food, and function seriously. And I will see you in the next episode.